Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I am going to talk with my friend Terry. I am Mayara, and I'm going to be talking with my friend Terry today. Terry is a doctor in psychology and a ordained minister. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's Monday.
Woohoo! Monday morning, that's great. Monday morning for
New,
me, Monday
it's
lunchtime for you,
new beginnings. I
right?
get to start all over again.
I love it. So, we're going to be talking a little bit about how terrorist practices can be helpful for what we've been talking about in the summit, about how the number of the anxiety and depression in teenagers are just raising very, very rapidly. So let's talk a little bit about your experience first, Terry. How did you get into these modalities of, counseling and helping people and being a minister? How did everything happen for you personally?
Well, that's a big loaded question, Mayada. Um, it actually started in my own crisis.
Hmm.
About 25 years ago, I was an ordained minister, um, pastoring a church, climbing what I call the ladder of success and doing well, traveling the country, speaking. I had a musical group. My wife was a concert pianist, and we were just kind of living the dream, doing our thing. And then all of a sudden, I get a letter one day that my wife of 17 years was confessing to an affair. Not only one affair, but she was confessing to two affairs that she had had. And in the confession, she was really asking for help. And in asking for help, uh, I was not equipped. Here I was preaching what I call the gospel of good news, faith, forgiveness, and it was my worst nightmare. I couldn't handle it. Um, it melted me,
Mm-hmm.
it broke me, and I went through about 5 years of wilderness experience.
Mm-hmm.
And in that wilderness experience, I quit the church immediately because I realized that I could not practice what I had been trying to teach,
Mm-hmm.
which is forgiveness and grace. And after about 5 years, I had an experience that was a real eye-opening, you know, meeting with God that said it gave me the ultimatum: either I am going to learn this, or I'm going to continue being bitter and broken.
Mm.
And so I chose to open my heart, open my mind, and God came in. And for the first time in my life, I I understood what forgiveness is all about.
Mm.
And so I was still married at the time, but the marriage was on the rocks. I asked, first of all, I said, "You're forgiven. You are forgiven. And I don't want there to ever be another day that you have any guilt or shame or condemnation coming from me. But I need to ask you to forgive me for the way that I have treated you.
Mm.
And I have been less than Christian, less than kind, less than human."
Mm.
And I said, "I would like to see if we could try to put our marriage back together. Can we get some help?" And she said, "If you would have said that a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have loved that." But she says, "I don't have anything left." And I said, "Well, this forgiveness is not conditional."
Mhm.
And so it was very painful. We went through a amicable divorce. We're still the mother of, or the parents of, two grown boys. We have 10 grandchildren. When we see each other, we respect each other. We're disappointed in our young past of not knowing how to handle some of the pressures of raising children,
Mhm.
but we have been blessed. And because of that forgiveness, God has blessed my family, my children, my grandchildren, and there's been a tremendous healing. But I had to ask myself, if this could happen to a young pastor, sold out, doing everything he knew how
Hmm.
many people must be sitting in the congregation going through the same thing? And and so that's when a mentor came to me and said, "Have you ever considered counseling?" And I said, "Counseling? I'm a failure." And they reminded me that God is the one who takes our brokenness and turns it into something positive. So I started my academic career all over again. I had to go back and get a second master's in psychology. I got a doctorate in psychology, totally separate from theology.
Hmm.
And it's been about 25, 27 years now of having a real compassion for all humanity that goes through brokenness. And I have learned that the definition for chaos and crisis in Chinese is made up of two words: danger and opportunity.
Wow.
And so when a person is faced with crisis or chaos, normally we gravitate towards the danger. We
Hmm.
slip into addictions, depression, isolation. But in the middle of that, there is also an opportunity. And I have seen my role in crisis counseling now to try to direct people in crisis towards the opportunities that lie ahead.
Hmm.
It's been a phenomenal journey, lots of great successes, great stories, not 100%, but I'm convinced that the choice is ours to make.
Yes, yes. Wow, Terry, that's beautiful. That's it really resonates with me too. Like when you say, God takes the brokenness, whatever had happened that crushed you so much, to use that to help other people going through similar things. It's, my whole background coming from so much abuse back in Brazil. I did not have a role model when I was a teenager at all, dealing with the anxieties that come with all the pressure, dealing with alcohol since like 12 years old, very heavily abusing it, and kind of lost, just didn't know what else was out there. And so now, having done so much work on my own healing and discovering my confidence in myself and trust in God and everything, I have transformed myself. So it's like you're saying, using the brokenness. So I can use all of that experience to help being a model for the teenage girls that don't have a powerful role model to follow. So yeah, it's really a beautiful story. So this is the thing too, you work with crisis, and this is what I've been focusing on, the how much the teenagers are really like lost right now with everything that's going on in the world, these unrealistic models that they see out there of life, like how to be successful and all of that. It's really crushing their self-confidence and self-esteem and trusting God and trusting themselves. So I'm sure you have like a whole ton of stories of teenagers that you have worked with. Like, would you be willing to share with us maybe, a very impactful story that you have, that how your practices and, your work with these girls was beneficial for them? How did you see them, transforming through the practices that you do?
Well, let me share this story, Nayara.
Hmm.
Love that name. Um,
Thank you.
Down the street from me at a place called Madeira Beach,
Hmm.
there is a park. It's called Rock Park, ROC. ROC stands for Remember Our Children.
Hmm.
And have you been there?
I know that part, yes.
Okay. Well, a friend of mine built that park because he lost his son to a tragic accident,
Oh.
and him and his wife decided that they wanted to take their grief and turn it into something positive. So they raised the money, and when the city of Madeira was rebuilding their parks and recreation and the town hall and everything, uh, they didn't have money in their budget to do landscaping. So for 12 acres around this park. He built the landscaping, and in that, it's been about 4 years now, and there are now over 450 families that have lost children that have made some kind of a memorial in this park. And there's probably not a week that goes by that Bill and I don't meet with a family that's going through a tragedy or a crisis.
Mm.
And and when they come to this crisis, we walk them through the park, and Bill will say something like this. He says, "You have just joined a club that nobody wants to join,
Mm.
but you're not alone."
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're in the efforts to try to do awareness and prevention. And 2 years ago, before COVID, on July the 1st, Bill and I met with 100 mothers that gathered together throughout the country. 100 mothers came to the park to try to learn how they could build awareness among young people and teens. And every one of these mothers had lost at least one child to an opioid crisis.
Mm.
And now there's a memorial there for them. And so the key is early prevention. And we got to catch these children at younger ages to help them build into their what I call imago, their self-image
Yes.
and identity, that they are created in the imago of God, and God has put His DNA in us to, you know, to be resilient, but they don't know those skills, and especially with young girls. Girls have a lot of disadvantages to them.
Mm-hmm.
My hat's off to you, Mayara, for focusing on these girls, because, when Sigmund Freud first started doing psychoanalysis, his statistics came out where he said that 1 in 8 girls are probably abused or sexually molested by the age of 16. That's
Mm.
1 in 8. And he calls that hysteria.
Mm.
There's a lot of names and labels for it now, but the human psyche in a young girl was not designed or created to handle that kind of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets off an avalanche of behaviors, emotions, and coping devices. And so we need to unwind that, and we need to help these young girls deal with their true inner selves, on how special they are and the world that lies within them, and
Mm-hmm.
how beautiful it is. Even if it's been broken, it
Mm-hmm.
can be healed.
Yeah, that's for sure. I remember working with Bill on that stuff on the Restored project. It's just you can still find that beauty within. So, what would you say would be some of the like the behavior changes, like from a psychologist point of view? What are the behavioral changes that you could, keep an eye on to see where is your daughter at, like you were saying? Because one of the most efficient ways to kind of manage the whole thing is have the early prevention. So how would that look like what would be the signs that you would watch for with your teenager?
Well, the gold standard in mental health is based on four things. And the first one is the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to look at changes in the emotional behavior, depression,
Mm-hmm.
anger, anxiety, stress, fear,
Mm-hmm.
guilt, shame. A healthy child should be happy.
Mm-hmm.
A healthy child should be full of wanting to play,
Yeah.
to learn, to sing, to dance. I mean, there should be nothing more exciting than to be a child in this world, to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel wanted. And yet, the first sign would be when that's not taking place, because that is normal. Normal for a child is to play.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go to a playground and watch the children playing, and everyone's having a good time, but maybe off over in the corner over here is one child who's sitting off in a corner alone and isolated. That's the
Mhm.
first sign, isolation and emotion.
Yeah.
The second one is it's a little bit more difficult to read, but it's personality.
Hmm.
You know, everybody has a personality, and when you're in what's called the norms, there's no right or wrong or good or bad personality. They're just different.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very what I would consider healthy family. I had great parents. I had an older brother, four younger sisters, and there were six of us. Um, but that personality, my brother was 18 months older than I am.
Hmm.
My brother he's a West Point grad. He's a full bird colonel. All the way growing up in school, he was a straight A student. He did everything right, and it seemed like I did everything wrong. And people could not understand, how can two siblings be so opposite? And I was always in trouble. I mean, I was never a bad kid, but I was always in trouble.
Hmm.
And I was in my 30s before someone taught me that the only thing that I had been trying to do my entire life is I've been in search of me.
Mm.
When no one said this to me,
Hmm.
but I heard it. And a lot of times we hear things that people don't say.
Mm.
And what I heard from my teachers, I heard my mother say it, but my mother never said it, and I would never tell her.
Hmm.
But I heard people say, "Why can't you be more like your brother?"
That's a hard one.
Oh yeah. And I interpreted that to say he's good and I'm bad.
Hmm.
So my imago growing up was bad. And so my way of searching for my imago, my self image, was to do the opposite of my brother.
Mm.
And I got in trouble. But, you know, I got help.
Hmm.
It's so important to get help. I was in my 30s before that happened.
Mm.
But when I when I got this help, I learned how to embrace who I am. God didn't create me to be like somebody else.
Yep.
My personality is unique.
Hmm.
No one has my DNA, my fingerprints. God made me who I am, and now I have learned to love who I am.
Hmm.
The world teaches self centered love, the world teaches narcissistic love,
Hmm.
the world teaches egocentric love. But that's not what God teaches. God teaches unique love. I created you in my image. And when I accepted that, I think my life really changed.
Hmm.
The third thing you look at, so you look at emotions and changes in that,
Yeah.
you look at personality development.
Yeah.
Is this young person growing into acceptance of self for who I am, not comparing myself to others to try to be like someone else?
Yeah.
The third thing you want to look at is you want to look at physical.
Hmm.
And the physical part is basically illness.
Hmm.
There's some people whose body, their immune system is weak. They're they're susceptible to disease, cancer, and the body has a lot of weaknesses in it.
Hmm.
And many times the body is just telling us what it's missing.
Hmm.
And I know that you are big into nutrition. I know that you're big into health.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of our physical conditions that we could improve if we would just learn to take care of our bodies better.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we want to look at too, is the physical changes that are taking place.
Hmm.
You know that when many girls are abused as a child, one of the ways that they'll protect themselves is they will gain a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Why do they do that?
Literally builds the protection around them.
Yeah, so nobody will want to abuse them.
Yep.
And so it's a form of protection, but it's not a healthy form.
Yes.
So we want to teach empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth thing to look at is socialization.
Mm-hmm.
And how often I see people that were so plugged in, these young girls that were plugged in to their friends and families and enjoyed having fun and doing things, and now all of a sudden they don't want to talk, they want to disengage,
Yeah.
and depression sets in. And so it's the socialization, it's not wanting to be around people.
Mm-hmm.
uh, God did not create us to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
He created us as social beings. So those are the four areas that I say that you could look at.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah. There's so many like subtle changes that start happening, in those areas, that if you bring your awareness to the moment and be present with your kid, you notice the difference. We tend to get, like, as parents, too busy, going around and just making life happen. You got to make money, you got to provide, you got to do this and do that. It's a very dangerous line, because if you're not paying attention, those slight changes start getting bigger and bigger, and you're not noticing, you're not present with them in the moment to notice those slight changes that happen with them. I did this course, it's called conscious parenting, and it was amazing how much she was touching in that. I noticed that all the modules, she would go back to that, to the awareness. Bring yourself to the moment when you are interacting with your kids, so that you can see really what's going on. So when those subtle little changes start, you are like, oh, I caught that, right? So it's like you're saying, early prevention. You got to see it first, so that you can, right, pay attention to it, do something about it, talk with them. That's
I
really
know that
great.
it's more of an adult read, but you know, one of the books that I use for parents and adults in relationship is a book called Getting the Love You Want.
I love that book.
Yeah, and really it's about learning how to love yourself.
Hmm.
We know the saying, but it's really true that anytime we're looking for love outside of ourselves, we're going to be disappointed
Yes.
unless you find the love within yourself first.
Yeah.
Then you are capable to look for love or to give love on the outside.
Yeah.
But that that DNA is created in us to love, and we need to find it and we need to empower it.
Yeah. And we also give our power away when we depend on an external circumstance to be in a certain way, so that we can feel in a certain way. It's like totally giving your power, because then that circumstance go in the way that you're expecting. That's great. You feel good. If it doesn't go, you don't feel good. You have no power to do anything about it, because you're just counting on that thing external to go in a certain way. So it's like, it's a total like recipe for frustration, I feel. So that's really great, Terry. Thank you so much for all these nuggets of wisdom. It's really helpful. I really hope that the parents that are, with us can get a lot of these, the observations, like how to pay attention really to where the kids are at. So just for us to wrap it up, how could people find you? Like what would you where would you direct people to have more of what you have to offer?
Well, I live in Treasure Island, Florida,
Hmm.
and it's called Paradise. And
I know.
I work in Largo, Florida, which is about 10 miles up the beach. Um, my office is I run the Anona United Methodist Counseling Center. Anona United Methodist Church is about a 7,000 member church. We have four counselors in the center. Each one of us specialize in special things,
Mhm.
everything from human trafficking to elder care. And so, my email is terry@anona.com. Very easy. Anona, Anona, is an Indian word for apple.
Oh,
And, you know, a couple hundred years ago, the Indians tried to settle here in Largo and came from upstate New York or somewhere up in the Northeast. And they came down and they tried to plant apples, but apples don't grow in Florida.
no.
But when they named it, the name remained. So Anona is just a little kind of an area here in Largo. And so you can reach me at terry@anona.com. You can go to the anona.com website and, look around and find the counseling center with some with background on it, and do my resume, CV, a little bit of my background, and the other counselors as well. But I'm here. I'm basically considered a marriage and family, because that's broad enough to take in, all of the different generations and the interactions between families.
Mhm.
Uh, but my training in that is basically early childhood development. I
Mm.
know that the first 6 to 7 years of a child's life is the most formative years in the areas of trust versus mistrust, autonomy, independence, guilt versus shame,
Yeah.
industrialization. Those first 6, 7 years of the life is just so crucial.
Mhm.
The good news is that if we didn't have a healthy beginning, when we grow older as an adult, such as yourself, the brain is wired in such a way that it can be reprogrammed.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was going to say. That's the programming part of our lives, which it's not set in stone. It can definitely, I have been reprogramming so many things in my life as an adult. So I know that, the efficiency of, these tools and all of this work. I know it works because I have worked it out with myself. And I do it with Nikki too, to get some stuff out from when she was 0 to 6, 7 years old, and it works beautifully. It's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Terry, for joining me today. That was really beautiful. I really hope that these insights can be beneficial for people joining us. I believe they will, because it's really effective stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a great, beautiful rest of your day in sunny Florida, and we'll chit chat some more soon.
Always good to talk with you, Mayada. You are a real, true, introspective, passionate person, and you are good. You are good for people, as an example of um, transformation.
Oh, I
You
love
have.
it. Thank you, Terry. It means a
Thank
lot to
you.
me. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Awesome.
blessed day.
You too. All right. We'll talk soon. Bye,
Bye.
guys.
See you later.
See ya.